Welcome back, everyone. Today we've got a truly fantastic explainer lined up for you. We are going to deconstruct the absolute cornerstone of short-run economics. Okay, let's dive into this. It is a masterclass on the law of variable proportions. If you've ever found yourself wondering how businesses figure out exactly how many workers to hire, or when throwing more resources at a problem actually starts hurting the bottom line, well, this is the theory that explains the whole shebang. Plus, if you're ever staring down that classic 6-mark exam question asking you to state and explain the 3 stages of production, we're going to break it all down step by step so you can totally master it.
So, here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the core law explained, move into essential production assumptions, and then do some interactive diagram tracing. After that, we'll break down the 3 stages. Stage 1 is increasing returns, Stage 2 is diminishing returns, and finally, Stage 3 is negative returns. Let's get to it.
But before we get bogged down in definitions, just think about this for a second. If one worker produces 10 units of a product, why wouldn't 100 workers just magically produce 1,000 units? I mean, pure math tells us they should, right? But the real world, it just doesn't work that way. In short-run economics, you're dealing with fixed factors. Think about the physical size of your factory or the exact number of machines you have on hand. You literally cannot keep cramming more and more workers into that same tight space and expect every single one of them to maintain that exact same productivity level. At some point, they're just going to be bumping elbows and getting in each other's way. Shattering that specific misconception is exactly what this law is all about.
Section 1, the core law explained.
Okay, so here's the formal definition. The law of variable proportion states that as you apply more and more units of a variable factor, like, say, labor, to a given quantity of a fixed factor, like machinery or land, your total product, meaning your overall factory output, is going to change in 3 very specific phases. First, your total product increases at an increasing rate, but then, eventually, it'll still increase, but at a diminishing rate. And finally, if you just keep blindly adding that variable factor, your total product will actually fall. It's basically the fundamental rhythm of production, a fast rise, a slow crawl, and then an inevitable decline.
Moving on to Section 2, essential production assumptions.
Now, for this law to actually work in theory, we have to rely on 4 essential ground rules, or assumptions. Number 1, the state of technology is a given and remains totally unchanged. If you were to suddenly invent some wildly superior machine halfway through the day, it completely skews the data, right? Second, some inputs absolutely must be kept fixed while others are varied. This is what allows the actual proportions between factors to change. Third, the technology itself has to allow for these changing proportions. Like, this law just wouldn't apply to a recipe that strictly demands exactly 1 operator per machine, no more, no less. And fourth, and this one is absolutely critical, all units of the variable factor have to be homogeneous and equally efficient, meaning every single new worker you add has to be exactly as skilled and capable as the last one.
All right, Section 3, interactive diagram tracing.
Now, this brilliantly illustrates the whole concept in one perfect view. We're looking at 2 stacked graphs. On the horizontal x-axis for both, we're tracking the units of our variable factor. Let's just call it units of labor. Up in the top panel, the y-axis is tracking total product, which is your overall output. Down in the bottom panel, the y-axis tracks average product, so the average output per worker, along with marginal product. And marginal product is just the extra output you get from hiring 1 additional worker. Because they're stacked perfectly like this, you can basically trace a single vertical line from the bottom straight up to the top. It lets you see exactly how the productivity of that 1 extra worker directly impacts the massive total output of the entire factory. It's like a giant puzzle coming together.
Now, what's really interesting about this is point M up on the top graph. This is what we call the point of inflection. If you look right at point M, the total product curve is shooting upwards. It's super steep, which means output is increasing at an increasing rate. But the exact second you pass point M, that curve starts to flatten out. I mean, it's still going up, but the slope has completely changed. It's now increasing at a diminishing rate. And if you drop a vertical line straight down from point M to the bottom graph, you'll see it aligns perfectly with the absolute highest peak of the marginal product curve. The precise moment your extra workers hit their absolute maximum added value, your overall growth rate starts to slow down.
Sticking with that top graph, let's trace the curve even further until we hit point T. This is it, the absolute peak of the total product curve. You literally cannot produce 1 more unit with your current fixed factory setup. Now drop a line straight down from point T to the bottom graph. Look exactly where it lands. It hits L3 on the x-axis. That is the exact moment the marginal product curve drops all the way down to 0. Think about it. When an extra worker adds absolutely nothing to the output, literally 0 marginal product, your total output has naturally hit its absolute ceiling. Which brings us to Section 4, Stage 1, Increasing Returns.
All right, in stage 1, the stage of increasing returns, things are moving incredibly fast. Total product initially skyrockets at a rapid, increasing rate right up to that point M we just talked about. From there, it keeps going up, but at a diminishing rate until point A. Meanwhile, marginal product, again, that's the extra output from each brand new hire, is rising, hits its absolute peak right at point M, and then starts to decrease, even though it's still safely in the positive. And average product, the overall output per worker, that's increasing throughout this entire stage, hitting its absolute maximum right at the end. Why does this happen? Well, initially, your fixed factors, your machines, are just sitting there underutilized. By adding those first few workers, you're finally getting a fuller utilization of the fixed factor, and your team can actually divide the labor efficiently.
Notice how stark the contrast is as we build into the next phase. In stage 1, marginal product aggressively climbs right to its peak. But look at stage 2. Marginal product is just continuously decreasing until it hits 0. The tide has completely turned. That perfect optimum combination of fixed and variable factors, it's being totally disrupted.
Section 5, Stage 2, Diminishing Returns.
So in stage 2, the dynamic shifts completely. Your total product is definitely still increasing, but only at a diminishing rate. It's essentially crawling up until it finally hits that absolute maximum peak at point T. And because the overall total product is slowing down, your marginal product just keeps on decreasing throughout this entire stage until it crashes to 0 at L3. Even the average product, which had just peaked at the end of stage 1, starts sliding down. Crucially, though, it does stay positive. You aren't getting those massive, exciting gains from new hires anymore. You are literally just squeezing every final drop of productivity out of your existing fixed machinery.
But here is a truly fascinating economic truth. Even though returns are diminishing, stage 2 is actually considered the best stage to operate for any rational producer. You might be wondering, why on earth wouldn't you just stay in stage 1? Well, because in stage 1, the average product of your workers is still going up. If you just stop there, you're literally leaving money and productivity on the table. You haven't taken full advantage of your fixed factory yet. A rational producer is going to keep hiring right on through stage 1, pushing deep into stage 2 to extract the maximum possible overall output right before those extra workers start contributing absolutely nothing.
And that leads us to Section 6, Stage 3, Negative Returns. Stage 3 is where the factory floor just descends into pure, utter chaos. For the very first time, total product actually starts to fall. Your overall output is shrinking, and because total product is falling, marginal product goes completely negative. This means every new person you hire is literally destroying some of your output. It sounds crazy, right? And naturally, average product just continues its downward slide. The main reason for this? Severe overcrowding. You've got way too many workers, limited tools, and massive management headaches. People are literally just getting in each other's way.
If we check back on the bottom panel of our diagram, you can visibly see this failure playing out. Just trace that marginal product curve, the bottom line. After L3, it completely crosses the x-axis and just plunges straight into negative territory. That harsh drop below the line, that represents a total breakdown in production efficiency.
So the crucial point here is perfectly summarized by this fantastic quote from our source material. Stage 3 is quite literally the stage of economic nonsense and economic absurdity. No rational producer would ever, under any circumstances, operate here. Honestly, even if workers volunteered to work for completely free, you still wouldn't let them in the door. Why? Because their mere presence actually causes your total output to decrease. Why would any firm incur all that effort just to end up with fewer goods produced? So by process of elimination, you leave the unfinished business of stage 1 behind, you completely avoid the absolute absurdity of stage 3, and you firmly, confidently operate your business right in stage 2.
Which leaves us with this final thought for you to take away from today's Masterclass Explainer. When you look at your own projects, your own business, or honestly, even your own time management, based on the law of variable proportions, are you effectively maximizing your fixed factors in that sweet spot of stage 2? Or have you pushed things way too far, adding so many variables that you're just creating overcrowding and negative returns? It's a remarkably powerful lens through which to view efficiency. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this fundamental economic law. Catch you next time.